Let's have a look at Measure and Improve, which is the second stream in strategy and metrics. What does good look like for this stream? Well, obviously you have a strategy with actionable goals. And for every goal, you need to be able to measure it. The key thing is you want to have multiple types of metrics. You want to be looking at things from a number of perspectives. Metrics need to be derived from available information, and ideally it has to be automatically computed by your tooling, so there is not much manual or spreadsheet work involved. Say you have a metric that takes 3 people 5 days to come up with, that's not a good metric. Finally, the values cannot be secret. So you want to have a helicopter view of the metrics for the executive board. For instance, the number of vulnerable dependencies that have stayed in the application dependency tree for more than 90 days. The executive board wants to know overall whether things are getting taken care of. On the application team level, the team wants to be able to look at the details. Hey, there are 6 vulnerable libraries in your code base. They would want to drill down to those and see which ones are those and what are they going to do about it. There are 3 types of metrics we define in a SAM model. First of all, we need to be able to reflect on the effort that's expended to do AppSec things. So you might want to look at training hours completed, number of staff hours spent at code reviews, number of application scans performed, which is a proxy metric for measuring how widespread automated scans are across the teams. But all of that is not going to tell you much about the results. So you want to have result-oriented metrics. For instance, a listing of how many patches have been outstanding for more than 30 days or 60 days. Finally, environment metrics are really about the context. So imagine presenting 3,000 moderate severity findings across all your scans. But then the question is, how many scans are that? If it's 2, well, that's not too good, or maybe your tooling is not too good. So the environment metrics will typically tell you about what the denominator is in a set of counts for the effort and result metrics. And most importantly, in order to get a reasonable picture of where things stand, you want to have metrics of all these types ideally for each goal. So that's a lot of metrics, I know. Now, when you're selecting what metrics to have, you should ideally take into account all of these criteria. You want to be able to measure consistently, and that is essential. If the way a metric is measured depends on a significant amount of subjectivity, then your comparison of metrics week to week might not be meaningful and the metric loses its value. The metric should be inexpensive to gather because, as I've mentioned, if you need 3 people and 5 days to come up with a metric, then it's not a good metric. Ideally, it should come out of your tooling automatically. And then these last 2 points go together. The metrics should be quantitative, account or percentage, and it needs to be clear its account of what. In particular, it needs to be clear for someone reviewing the metrics what factors are included in deciding what gets counted. At the first level, the question is, do you have metrics? And the answer should go back into the 3 categories that we've discussed: effort, result, and environment metrics. Have you defined a set of metrics, and in order to count the metric, all these things should be true about it? The metric is well understood and it's documented. The more type of metrics you have, the more credit you'll get. It's measured frequently and it's inexpensive expensive to gather, ideally being output by an automated process. Finally, the metrics are published and visible to everyone. Secrets don't really count. When we go to level 2, this is where we get to the idea of having an executive dashboard with key performance indicators. Once you've identified the metrics, you have defined KPIs, and those have been vetted by the leadership and the AppSec teams. KPIs should be visible to everyone, and they should actually demonstrate the success of your AppSec program. So you don't create metrics for the metrics' sake. You need to make sure that your metrics and your key performance indicators are actually checking whether your AppSec program is going the right direction. Note that the metrics don't have to be the same for each team, but the KPIs should. Depending on the tooling and what information is gathered, there might be different process for each tool to translate the available metrics into KPIs. At level 3, the question is whether the executive team is paying attention to the KPIs. As they see the needle move on those indicators, are we updating, are we reviewing our strategy, and are we reviewing our KPIs for efficiency and effectiveness? The second key thing to pay attention to here is if we have picked a specific area for improvement and our KPIs are great, and we have been making an impact, perfect. We don't abandon that, but it stops being strategic focus because we've got where we want it to be. Even if it doesn't change the direction of the enterprise, the feedback from the KPIs should be changing what we're focusing on. And that is largely what the second bullet indicates. So your metrics and your KPIs trigger most of your AppSec strategy changes.